Hi, James.
Good afternoon.
And then we're going to hear from Gabriele Corsini, who's environmental manager for Octavius, another major contractor, supplier, partner into National Highways. Hi, Gabriele.
Hello, good afternoon.
And last but certainly by no means least, we've got Paul Taylor, who's the head of carbon. That's a great title, Paul. Head of carbon for Balfour Beatty. Thanks for joining us, Paul.
Hello there.
Hi. Yeah, as I've said, past 2080, it'd be great to, through this call, provide clarity, provide an up-to-date overview of how National Highways are using past 2080 through its supply chain with these contractors who are on the call this afternoon, but many more, and also the expectations from the broader supply chain, both material suppliers and subcontractors. So it'd be great to get that knowledge and update from Jenny and her colleagues. So really looking forward to it. I'm here in the background with my colleague Lorraine, and we'll keep everything flowing. But Jenny, over to you. First of all, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. So yeah, I'm Jenny Watts. I'm project manager at the Net Zero Carbon team. And today is all about, I'm just going to give you a really quick progress update on our net zero plan, and then we'll move on to meeting the PAS 2080 deadline. So next slide, please. So I hope you're welcome, first of all, and thank you for joining today. I hope you find the session informative and valuable. I'll just do a really quick introduction. I joined the Central Carbon team last September after working in major projects for almost 10 years. I'm passionate about tackling climate change and proud to be part of an organisation that's helping to shape a sustainable future. So in 2021, we set out our net zero plan, which with the goal of eliminating emissions from our own operations by 2030, for construction and maintenance by 2040, and our roads by 2050. So the net zero plan progress update is publicly available now, along with the net zero plan itself. I'll just pop the link into the chat. So if you haven't read our latest progress update, you can take a look after the session. Just bear with me. I'll just put it in the chat. There you go. Hopefully you'll all see that. So moving on to the next slide, please. So you'll be able to see, this is kind of summarising our performance from April 24 to March 25, and it includes some key highlights, some of our successes. 98% of our fleet is now plug-in, hybrid or EV. I believe that's 100% now. So, you know, we're still working hard to get all of our light fleet to EV vehicles. 51% of the network is now lit by low energy light bulbs. And we're also doing quite a lot of work with our depots and outstations to make them more energy efficient. Moving on to the maintenance and construction, you can see that we delivered our lowest carbon road resurfacing project on the A64, and there's a lot of information publicly available on that scheme. And we launched our 10 asks for designers, and that's available on our Carbon Hub. And we also retained our PAS 2080 accreditation. So, and for road user, lots of work going on in that space, including we delivered the first energy storage system at one of our motorway service areas, and that will enable high-powered EV charging in very fast times. So, moving on to the next slide, please. So, what is PAS 2080? Okay, so being compliant to PAS 2080 means having the capability of delivering low carbon solutions. It sets out a carbon management process that applies to both infrastructure and buildings, and it recognises the shared features as part of the wider built environment. And as well as cutting emissions, it can help organisations to save money, reduce risk, strengthen your reputation, and embed innovation. Next slide, please. So what do we need from you? Okay, so in June 2023, our carbon in contracts policy was approved, and it's being integrated into our national highways model contracts. So in summary, the policy requires our suppliers to commit to meeting the key aims set out in the net zero plan, be PAS 2080 certified by the end of 2025, and to set aligned science-based target initiative targets by the end of 2028. Next slide, please. So we've got 3 months to go. We're approaching this critical milestone, and for our large and medium suppliers to be PAS 2080 certified. This means they need to have carbon management systems in place and verified under the PAS 2080 by the end of December. The requirement only applies to suppliers who are directly procured through relevant construction and maintenance frameworks. And I believe so far to date, 52% of these suppliers are now accredited. I think we have 27% working towards, and there's still the remainder of which of the suppliers are being contacted to find out how they're getting on and what progress they're making. So all new contracts will be developed using an adopt and explain approach to ensure compliance with the carbon reduction standards. Small and micro suppliers are also expected to align with the binding principles of PAS 2080, following our carbon management system and supporting production of products like the carbon management report in major projects and 3D products for operations. So please reach out and speak to us through our team inbox if you have any queries, or if you want to share your case studies with us as well. By providing your insights and your lessons, you can help others with their future decision making, and it encourages innovative thinking. So next slide, please. So these are some top tips that we put together after speaking to various people in the industry, and also through our own experience of getting that PAS 2080 accreditation. Top tips. So at this stage, your audit should be scheduled by now. They do have, they only have certain availability. So if you haven't already got your audits scheduled, please, make sure that that's done. Create an organised and auditable evidence base and look at continuously updating it. Provide as much evidence as possible as you can in advance of your audits. What we've learned when we've been getting together our evidence is, even if they're not, they don't want to see it, it's better to get it in your tracker to make sure that you haven't missed anything. So, and also leading on from that, map out the evidence against the clauses, because this can help you to identify any gaps that you might have in your evidence, and spot the risks early, put backup plans in place while you've still got time to do that ahead of your audits. And just to sort of mention, you don't need to be perfect from the outset. This process is all about continuous improvement, as we've learned at National Highways. Okay, moving on to the next slide, please. So our Carbon Hub is basically a go-to resource for all things that are net zero, and it brings together lots of tools and guidance and learning materials that will support you on your PAS and your carbon management journey. It includes things like past webinars, supplier guides, our carbon management system. We have a low carbon opportunities register on there, carbon case studies. There's also a section on frequently asked questions, and I think there's a specific section that's all about PAS 2080 bite-sized learning that can help you on your journey. And so if you don't have access to that Carbon Hub yet, please just email our carbon team using the address at the bottom of the slide, and we'll get you set up. So moving on to the next slide, please. So these are just final thoughts, really. Learn by doing. So by doing it, every step that you're going to take is going to bring new insights. Leadership drives change. When leaders commit to something, they inspire their teams, make sure that goals are aligned, and it basically unlocks the momentum in your organizations. Sustainability does go beyond carbon. So look at where you can broaden your conversations to include things such as biodiversity, water use, and social equity. And cultural change takes time. So it's a journey, and it's built on trust and consistency and a shared purpose. So it's not a sprint, it is a journey, and you will find that you will evolve over time. We're still evolving now. So almost on a weekly basis, we're evolving, what the work that we're doing. And I suppose finally to remember to celebrate your successes. Take a moment to reflect on how far you've come, recognise the milestones that you've achieved, and share your wins with your teams and the wider industry. So I hope you found that useful as a sort of setting the scene and an opener. So I shall now pass over to our industry leaders so that they can share some of their experiences and their lessons that they've learned implementing their carbon management systems and achieving their PAS 2080 verification. So thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Great introduction and exactly what we needed at the top of the webinar. Just thoughts from yourself and that clarity as well in terms of, it's a directly procured suppliers, isn't it, that you're
fantastic.
Scope first of all.
Yeah, I'll check the comments that have been made in the chat and add in the information that people have asked for.
Yeah, please do. It'd be great to put that link in as well for your Carbon Hub. I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest in people, and people then get access to a kind of SharePoint, don't they, through that Carbon Hub for the resources that you provide. Yeah.
Any problems, just email the carbon@nationalhighways.co.uk and we'll be able to get you access if you're struggling. Okay.
Great, yeah. There was a very quick question around, does it only, PAS 2080 that is, does it only affect labour suppliers? And I've said the short answer is no. I hope I got that right. It's far broader than that, isn't it? It's for many different categories of suppliers and contractors, yeah. Okay, great. Thanks again. There was a slight sort of whistling sound in the back of your mic, Jenny, so it's good that you've muted now because it was coming on about every 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, apologies. I'm sitting in a room that's full of frogs and they're talking to each other. I do apologise.
Yeah, that's nice. Biodiversity. Okay, how do you follow that? James Garrity, thanks for joining us. Sustainability Manager. There's no pets in your vicinity, is there?
No, I can't follow that, I'm afraid, Andrew, but thank you.
We'll get back to PAS 2080.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name's James Garrity. I'm a Sustainability Manager with the transportation part of Kier. I've been there for about 11 years now, and I've been asked to do a few minutes talking about our journey with PAS 2080 and also specifically how that kind of carbon management journey sort of lands in the real world of one of our projects. So firstly, I guess you can see from the fact that we're having a session like this, PAS 2080 is becoming an important tool in carbon management for many clients like National Highways to drive the carbon management sort of process forward. And while National Highways were kind of one of the early ones to sort of signpost to the larger subcontractors that this was a key part of the journey, we're seeing a lot of clients now, especially in the public sector, that are starting to mandate it or at least moving in that direction. And I think it's important that while not everyone will end up sort of needing the actual certification itself, there's a good chance you're going to end up working on a project that's covered by a client that has PAS 2080. So it's really important that you understand at least the basic principles of PAS 2080 and what's expected of you as part of the value chain of that client. to align with those PAS 2080 principles. And I think one of the key things we've found from the couple of years we've been on the PAS 2080 journey is that it's all about collaboration across the value chain. It's is invaluable. And it's not just us in Kier Transportation. There was a need identified it right across the Kier group, which is why we got the ball rolling and did our first certification to PAS 2080 back in 2023. And that's followed up by regular sort of annual interim audits. We've actually got another one coming up in a month's time. And so it's a big part of the process, not just in the highway sector, but across all of the sectors now. It's a really valuable tool. But I think what I would say is there's no getting away from the fact that, especially with the initial certification process, it is quite a complex journey. And it is quite time intensive. I don't think you can kind of shy away from that. And the important thing about it is, I'm a sustainability manager, so I'm from an environment background, but the really big thing about PAS 2080 is that you need that buy-in from right across your business. Your senior leaders need to be fully aware of what carbon management means and is, and, discussing carbon as part of the strategy as a routine thing, but you also need that support and engagement from other parts of the business, from your operational teams, from your procurement people, and if you have them in-house, those sort of design teams, to all be feeding in and be aware and be proactive and engaged in the process. So you can see at the bottom there, PAS 2080, although it's complex, at the heart of it's quite simple. There's a sort of four key areas, which in our context is there's an asset owner, which would be like National Highways. There would be a main contractor, which would be Kier. There would be the design team, which for us might be us, or it might be a third party design consultancy. And then there's the wider supply chain. And these are all important. And it's all about regular discussion, things that we hear all the time, things like ECI, to get people to start thinking a little bit outside the box, to challenge the norms of how we do the work we're doing, should all be a part of that process, so that we're starting to move people away from that kind of business as usual mindset in terms of carbon management. Next slide, please. In terms of the benefits of this PAS 2080 journey, as I mentioned, it kind of promotes these two-way conversations across the value chain. And a key bit of it is that we should be challenging each other on things like targets, on the actions we need to take, and also what the potential solutions might look like. It's we understand that, to be truly sustainable, this whole collaboration needs to kind of find that balance between the sort of low carbon elements, between the technical requirements, but also understand the cost implications. So it's kind of finding that balance between the three things. And PAS 2080 sort of gets us thinking about how we're engaging at every step of the process through a project in the carbon choices we're making. So Kier Group, for example, have been working to embed carbon into our processes and policies. We have some standalone ones now, like energy and management reporting, stuff around climate management, things like that. We've also, you start to see it also more, we now have more job roles emerging that are either carbon specific, or maybe where carbon elements have been added into that job role or into that sort of annual review process. So it's sort of embedding that carbon management into people's day-to-day job roles. And most importantly, our senior leadership teams across Kier have carbon as one of their routine drivers. So we've even now at the point where all of our divisional MDs are answerable to the group board on our carbon performance against their KPIs. And a bit like, just to go off the back of what Jenny was talking about, we're now 2 years into the process. We're trying to learn lessons as we go along. Like I said at the start, time is a big one. So, as soon as you got that audit date in the diary, start your prep as soon as you can. You're going to need a large amount of people available on those audit dates to come in and help you talk through the evidence that you're presenting, to talk about their experience of the carbon management journey. And as she alluded to, you need to be gathering that evidence into a manageable sort of filing system, so you can share that with the auditor. So that time and people resources is the first big thing that we found. And maybe stating the obvious, but the going through the standard really does highlight the importance of communication and engagement, so that when you're talking about carbon internally or externally with your clients, with other stakeholders, that anything that you're doing, meeting minutes, workshop outcomes, carbon reporting slides, all those kinds of things are all documented and available to use as part of the audit process. And again, probably overdoing this a little bit, but it's not just about the environmental sustainability person in your business, if you have one, getting involved. It's that buy-in and engagement from all parts of the business, your designers, if you have them, people on your procurement teams, operational managers, etc., and making sure that you get any key routine things that you kind of find as you're going through the audit process. Make sure that you're getting those documented and added into either your existing processes, or you create new standalone processes, so that you're fully documenting everything that you need to be doing. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to give you a quick look at one of our current major projects, just so you can see how carbon management sort of is working in reality. I mean, I think the first thing to say is the people actually on the ground on the project are not necessarily going to be thinking about carbon in terms of PAS 2080 or the language that's used in the standard, but they will, or at least they should be, having regular sort of discussion around the practical application of carbon management on their project. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the A417 missing link scheme, which sits in the Cotswolds just outside Gloucester. I think there's at least one, if not two, triple SIs in the area. It's an area of outstanding natural beauty. There's lots of sensitive receptors around the site. So, everything about the scheme has to be thoroughly considered and thought through. And while we're approaching the midpoint of that sort of main construction phase on that project, it's fair to say that in terms of carbon management, the story goes way back before the start of construction. In fact, we were starting to talk about carbon on that project even before we'd started the journey towards PAS 2080. So we had our first workshops back at the end of 2022 into early 2023. The first one we did, which involved all our design partners and some members of National Highways, was looking at a huge array of the potential engineering and product solutions that might be possible or available to use on the scheme. Everything from sort of fairly new and innovative techniques right through to some more already established kind of options. And then the second workshop we had was looking at our site compound setup and starting to think about how we can build in things like low carbon vehicles, low carbon plant, and more sustainable welfare options. And the big outcome of those workshops was not just the getting the ideas onto the table, but it was about providing that kind of kickoff, that starting point for discussion around carbon and that engagement on carbon. And I'll also mention here another key thing for me is that it's really good when you get clear directions from your client on a project, so they're mapping out their expectations around the use of innovation, around the use of low carbon materials, and also that their carbon targets are clear and ambitious, and that really helps stimulate the sort of the journey. So on the A417, we established a project sustainability working group, which initially was meeting monthly. It had members of our design teams, it had members from our supply chain involved, and they started to look at some of those outcomes that the workshops had sort of identified to see what was actually feasible. You can see one example's mentioned there where the head wall design was changed, so they moved away from just using solid concrete. Just an example of where those discussions have led to sort of a feasible improvement in carbon performance. And the discussions and those asset designs were then added into the design decision register, which means that every design option now has a RAG rating in terms of its carbon impact or its carbon benefit. And that's important because that means we're now starting to look at the project not just through the lens of what it costs, we're looking at what the carbon pros and cons are as well. Then as we got towards the construction phase, there was another round of workshops, this time focusing on the delivery. So that's where we're getting our sort of sub-agent team working with our environment team. And this is where we start to get some of those sort of later in the process wins. For example, on the 417, it resulted in the purchase of quite a large amount of solar powered generators and tower lighting equipment, which has massively reduced our fuel usage on the project. And I can't remember the exact figure, but we're talking in the thousands of litres of fuel a month that we're not using anymore. So it's important, like I said, to look for the wins all the way through the process. Next slide, please. So I think most people are aware now that the big carbon reduction decisions generally tend to come in the design stages, and then through good use of ECI, where we get the subject specialists engaged and involved. For the A417, we've had some elements of modular building introduced for some of the structures. There's been a lot of more thought given perhaps than previously to the depth of material used in piers or piles. And when we talk about ECI, we particularly engage with Walters through our sustainability group, and that really helped with us being able to make much better decisions around things like the planning of the logistics of that element of the work. We also have made sure that carbon was a big part of the onboarding process for our subcontractors, which again highlights what I was saying sort of right back at the start of my bit, which is even if you're not certified to PAS 2080 itself, you do need to understand that alignment and understand what it means to be aligned with the principles of PAS 2080, because you're going to need that to go and work on a site for national highways and the like. But what I also wanted to point out is it's important to stay on top of things during the works phase as well, because there are still gains to be made, like I mentioned with the solar welfare sort of stuff that we bought in. There can be good savings made through the sensible setup of your site compounds, through the fuels used both in your own vehicles, and then also start to think about how you mandate or sort of try and persuade your supply chain to join you on this journey. And then the last bit of it for us, I think, is the collating of the data. So once you've got those processes up and running, it's then about how you then, it's that continual improvement piece. So you're collating the data for carbon in the case of the 417, it's collated from all the major sort of areas, the materials, the fuel, the waste that we're producing on site and using on site. It's being reported on a monthly basis to National Highways, and that's then backed up with a monthly meeting with National Highways, where those emissions are compared with the forecast emissions, and then you can analyze the differences, what are causing, why is it a bit higher or a bit lower than expected? Is it something to do with program delays that are having an impact, or maybe it's the changes you've made that are having an impact, that better fuel decision that you've made, or a change in design. So you really get to start to see the benefits as part of that continual improvement piece. And I think that's about it from me. Thank you, Andrew.
Great, thanks, James. Really interesting input there, based obviously a lot of detail based on your experiences from Kia leading that project as well, A417 missing link. So it's great to get that firsthand from yourself. So thanks again for joining. And my colleague Lorraine's just dropped a link in, because I understand you're providing a little bit more detail on some of the aspects of that project later on in the autumn. I think Lorraine's put a link in. November the 10th. Hopefully got that right. Thanks again for joining, and stick around, please, and have a look at some of the questions coming in, or the queries coming from the chat, and you can respond. Great, let's move on. Gabriele Carlisi is the environmental manager for Octavius. Gabriele, thanks for joining. Apologies, I had a few issues with your slides, so are you okay to take ownership of the screen, and are you okay to share from your end?
Yes, no problem at all. Let me just one second.
Stop sharing, then you should be able to take over. Apologies again. My computer's decided to have a bit of a go slow today. That seems to be about to come through. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, is my screen visible?
It is, yeah, we can see it very clearly. Thanks, Gabriele.
Perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gabriele Carlisi. I'm environment manager for Octavius Infrastructure. Thank you very much for having me here, and I will present a little bit the journey that we had into past 2080. So in terms of past 2080, Octavius is a pretty young in our journey. As you can see here, we start in October 24 when we achieved the past 2080 certification. We set the continual improvement for the stage 2 audit, and basically try to align this to the to Octavius way for the coming 12 months. In October, December 24, we introduced the scorecard like for the highway part of the business, and then we launched the scorecard for the highway business. The scorecard are basically sort of a compliance slash quality tracking for the project. On the first quarter of 2025, company appointed the carbon champion, and then we start the company light process, which I will mention in the next slide. In September, October 25, we are in preparation for the surveillance audit, and also we are launching the training across the wider business. Next in October, we will have the first surveillance audit for past 2080 certification, and looking forward, we look to extend the past 2080 certification from the project we have at the moment to include also in the scope the rail business. In regard of future direction, as you can see on here, basically we recognize that carbon is not done only by the sustainability team, is actually a wider business matter. In this table, you can see basically how we try to bring inside of the carbon topic every relevant team in that forms the company. Like, for example, the bidding team is appointed to identify the customer requirement and help to determine the project that must have carbon management outcome, or operation, for example, is important because they have to focus on the site logistic, inside data collection, and last but not least, when we talk about the sustainability team, we deliver on-site support, technical guidance. We have to provide annual reporting, and most importantly, also training and awareness. The phases into our carbon roadmap, the first two steps we actually achieved, or we are in progress and almost concluded. So the phase one is the foundation and mobilization, where we establish governance, we build awareness, and we prepare the business. So that was, for example, appointing the carbon lead for the company, conduct baseline carbon maturity assessment, and also develop the carbon roadmap aligned with the PAS 2080 principle. The second phase is embedding into project and process, so operationalize carbon management across design, procurement, and delivery. So integrate this one within the whole life carbon assessment for carbon management process. Update design specification to reflect the low carbon principle with a low carbon register. The next two steps, which will happen in the future, is going to be the business-wide integration and cultural shift. So we have to extend the carbon thinking into the whole business function and foster a carbon conscious culture. So we have to embed this with our carbon KPIs and have like performance review, and the business scorecard will be integrated into the system. And the last step will be the optimization and continual improvement for the company, where we refine the system, we scale the best practice, and we drive continuous improvement. Here, this is where basically we how we embed the carbon activities in our gateway process. If we take, for example, the mobilization, we incorporate requirements from carbon reduction plan into subcontract tender documentation. We identify carbon working group for the project. We update project induction slide deck to include project specific items. We review where required and update the carbon reduction plan. Also, here, for example, the focus on site setup. For example, we have focus on site accommodation and welfare with minimum standard. You can see on the right side, I don't know if you see my arrow, but the little table here on the right is about the site accommodation and welfare minimum standard, as well as the energy hierarchy, which shows the preferred way to deliver energy on site. This is the implementation of PAS 2080 into Octavius structure. So from leadership and governance, we establish across the functional carbon working group. We identified carbon champion to drive awareness on the company, and we add carbon KPIs into our project. In terms of awareness and literacy, we are starting carbon training tailored to the role occupied on the company. We aim to achieve carbon work culture, and we encourage the employee to lead innovation and good practice in terms of carbon saving. In terms of design and delivery integration, we undertake early stage carbon assessment. We use carbon modeling tools to inform design. We collaborate with designer, customers, and supply to create low carbon option. From the procurement and supply chain, we embed carbon requirement into tender documentation. We review suppliers with carbon reduction plans and solution, and we use clauses to empower carbon reduction. From data reporting and continuous improvement, we are creating a central carbon data platform, and we conduct annual carbon audit according also with PAS 2080 standards. This is the carbon light process I was mentioning before, which is in progress at the moment, where we recognize we have capability of delivery reduction we can only influence what we can control directly, and this is the integration between basically the sustainability team and the design to deliver a low carbon solution. Almost the last bit about carbon initiative. This is basically what we are delivering in terms of carbon reduction initiative on the delivery on project delivery basis. A couple of examples: we have the ultimate cell, which is the retrofit and integration of low carbon solution. We basically install in an excavator some hydrogen cell to improve the efficiency. We are testing this on a 3-month period, and we are in trial versus like a traditional excavator, and we will get to the point when we will have data to demonstrate the significant decrease of fuel use and emission. We have hydrogen light tower, where we use tower with a hydrogen engine, which reduce the emissions and also the noise. This is both way useful for emission reduction and also for nuisance reduction for the neighbor and the night work. And last but not least, this is actually a rail project, but again, part of the carbon knowledge platform. For the first time, we managed to use one of the 2 electric crane used, which we have in UK. We use this for the delivery of the switchgear equipment in one of our projects. We managed to reduce 90% of the emission compared to the traditional diesel crane. We reduce as well noise and nuisance to the neighbor. And thanks to this project, we managed also to be nominated as a winner for the Green Apple Environment. And this is all from my point of view as like a wider view of our journey.
Thanks, Gabriele. That's excellent. Thanks for sharing your slides as well. Hopefully you'll be able to see mine again now. I hope. Yeah, it's great to get that input from yourself, and thanks for finishing up with some examples of the technology that you're using on site. That's great to see some of the carbon savings from that innovative hydrogen and electrical equipment and plant and equipment that you're using. I really like the implementation plan as well. I think it was the second to last slide before you showed some of the examples of the kit that you're using. That looked like a really good approach, a really methodical structure that you're working to in terms of your implementation plan around PAS 2080. So I look forward to receiving those slides and sharing them with the audience who's on the call. Thanks again. Stick around, please, as well, and we'll hopefully have some Q&A after we've heard from Paul. Paul, thanks for your patience. I know it's never easy to go last on these types of webinars, and we appreciate very much you joining us this afternoon. I'll pass straight across to yourself. You're, just to remind the audience, the head of carbon for Balfour Beatty. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. If we can move on to the next slide, thank you. So what I'm going to talk about today is the steps that are involved in securing PAS 2080 as a contractor, why it matters, what the enablers are and the benefits, and the lessons learned. But fundamentally, as my colleagues have said on the presentation so far, carbon is a little bit like safety. There are people who lead on it, but everybody has to do it. Next slide, please. So in terms of our steps, we started back in 2022. It took about 3 months to get auditor, verify our contracts in place and so on. Gap analysis was roughly about month 8. 3 to 4 months between gap analysis and the stage 1 audit to address the gaps that were found. And the stage 2 audit, which is the project evidence side rather than the process. Stage 1 is process, stage 2 is evidence, was in about month 12. And then the certificate was received the month after. So we've been recertified since then a couple of times, and our next certification is due in the next quarter. So as my colleagues have also said, the process improvement, it never stops. The data collection certainly never stops, and it is very much a continuous improvement journey. And the auditors will expect to see that year in, year out. They'll expect to see things getting better. In terms of who is involved, Balfour Beatty Highways as a business unit is a constructor. Since then, we've led to other business units within Balfour Beatty's achieving past 2080, particularly our power transmission and distribution business. And a couple of others are on the journey at the moment, which is great. It has led to and accelerated some of our key partners achieving past 2080, both our designers, bespoke product suppliers, and service providers. And where those don't yet have past 2080, and we need them to, they are contractually required to follow ours. Next slide, please. So why does it matter? Well, as Jenny said at the start of this session, it's a tier 1 requirement from December. Past 2080 is now part of Balfour Beatty Highways business management system. And as part of that, the BTG, that's our Bridging the Gap plan, our carbon action plan, is embedded both in the BMS and in our core business. So that's a PPN 020621 carbon reduction plan, specifically for highways, as well as the wider one for the business. It also means that carbon is inherent in project decisions. So some of our, particularly on our larger projects, we have a 5 pillars principle. You go from the traditional triangle of costs, quality, and time, making a decision on the basis of that, with safety all around it, to a square, to cost, quality, carbon, and time all being considered. And in those scenarios, no decision can be made if you don't have an answer to carbon. Next slide, please. So in terms of enablers and benefits, certainly as James said earlier, you need to now allow enough time. This needs dedicated resources. Certainly need to maximize the amount of time you've got between your gap analysis and your stage 1. It needs a strong level of training, both for those who are going to be involved in audit and for those who are responsible. Roles and responsibilities for carbon management don't sit in the carbon team solely, they sit across the business and across functions, and all of those people need appropriate training. So we started out with a sort of carbon literacy project type training and moved on since then to what we call carbon consciousness, which is role specific training. So job families, cost estimators, quantifiers, project managers, site supervisors, etc., all have specific training courses that's focused on them, what they do, and so they can get straight down to what actually do I need to do in my day job. It needs a significant investment from the SLT senior leadership. They need to be on board because it does change your business as usual. And I'm not sure we've mentioned it so far, but there are different types of verification within past 2080. As a contractor, obviously, I've got the constructor verification, but that doesn't change who you need to influence. You still need to influence clients and designers and suppliers to reduce the carbon across the piece. So the carbon management system flow diagrams are key to our delivery of past 2080. You can see an example on screen. You certainly can't read it, but basically you have one of these for each PCF stage for national highways. What deliverables are needed, whose roles and responsibilities are mapped out against those deliverables in a huge matrix. And it's consistent and proportionate to the stage of work you're in. And what we also did for Balfour Beatty Highways was we decided the best way forward was to develop an overarching carbon management plan. So this applies to the whole highways business, common processes and tools. That sits above, and then each project then focuses on actions. It produces a short, punchy construction decarbonisation plan, exactly what you're going to do on this job and when and by who. stops us having to rewrite carbon management plans for every project, most of which says the same thing as the previous one. Get past that. That also means that your CMP can then sit on your BMS and provides strength and direction to what you need to do. And you can see the overarching CMP on the right. In terms of the benefits, it does lead to a system level approach to decarbonising. You have to be engaging with DFT, National Highways, other tier ones, and your supply chain, especially if we're looking at the optimum in the carbon hierarchy, which is to avoid in the first place. Whole life carbon management decisions are key. Whilst we contractually might be employed to look at A1 to A5, life cycle A, which is all about delivering materials and using them to build something, we have to look at whole life. You can't ignore it, otherwise you get unintended consequences. You might be able to design a road surface which is ultra low carbon, but if it needs maintaining 3-5 times as often as another approach, is it the best solution in whole life terms? And past 2080 does put that duty upon you to raise those issues with the decision makers, and not just sit on your contract. It also means that leadership and governance to reduce carbon comes through a common management process. Everybody's expecting you to be raising carbon issues, expecting you to be challenging decisions, and that becomes positive and affirming. Next slide, please. So looking at lessons learnt, in terms of the who, as I mentioned before, and certainly as Gabriel mentioned a moment ago, it's not achieved by your carbon team alone, but by all those involved, from the MD of the business to site operatives, from the value engineering team to procurement, from the BMS auditors to your equipment providers. Everybody has to be involved. And the functions and projects need to own carbon management. They need to be able to explain it, deliver it, measure it. Carbon teams, especially in organizations like mine, are the pinch point in the hourglass. They're not the whole thing. In project evidence terms, not all jobs are the same, even for the same client. So if you take something like an RDP scheme and compare it to delivering a range of NEA projects, the requirements are different, the level of reporting is different. You need to have a structure and a system that is flexible enough to cover that, and explain the differences and exceptions if and where they occur. And in continuous improvement terms, as we said before, and my colleagues have said, there is no sitting on your laurels. What you do well now needs to be better next time. Next slide, please. Thank you. So number 4, change management. It's really important, and it's not easy to do efficiently, certainly. It is an important lesson that you do need to avoid death by tracker, which is where PAS 2080 can lead you to. But it is about managing change. And there's an example of a flow process for managing change on the top right. It's about thinking about what that change is, understanding its consequence on carbon, assuring that potential change, making sure you're right. How big an impact is it really going to have? And then taking that through the decision-making process, documenting it, and then implementing it. In carbon actuals, there are many different ways of doing this. This is reporting what you actually
You've lost your audio there. A little bit, Paul. Try again. Oh, you're back, I think.
Right. Apologies.
Yeah. No problem.
Not sure what happened there. So carbon actuals, so there are many different ways of doing that. The more manual, the less efficient, and the more error prone. And you do need to do a lot of technical assurance. It pays dividends in the end, but it is a lot of work sometimes. Technical assurance, as you can see, number 6, it is the backbone of PAS 2080. Invest in it. The data from your central services needs to be checked and audited by yourself. Project data, subcontractors data, supplier data, and the carbon calculations themselves, whether you do them or somebody else. You have to have a very clear quantification assurance process. The auditors will be very, very interested in looking at that. Number 7, it's not, strictly speaking, a requirement of PAS 2080, but it's one of the ways we interpreted how we make sure it's happening, which is to do carbon site inspections. Literally go and check what they're doing on site is what it says in the plan. And you can't always rely on environment and safety inspections that go on for other reasons to pick that up as well. There's a lot to do. And finally, the 8th thing is Delta deep dives. This is looking at the information, looking at the actuals you've incurred and reported, understand the process and the data sources to find improvements. Now, findings are not failure, they're routes to improvement. We have to continuously improve on the data we use and how we report our actuals. And if you want more on that, there was a previous presentation on Delta deep dives for National Highways webinar last month. The link is on the right. You can have a look at that. Thank you very much. That's me.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Extractant learnings again, similar to those shared by Gabriella and James. That was fantastic to get all of your experience into that 10 or 15 minutes slot. So some great learnings, some really key points there in terms of the carbon management plan that's required, all of the planning and resources that need to be factored in, and of course the buy-in from the senior management team, as well as a point that you made very clearly on one of your previous slides there. So thanks for the visuals, and we'll share those after this session. Yeah, if I could invite all panelists back to share their cameras, turn their cameras back on rather, if possible. And I'd like to also welcome Esther Gordon-Smith. Hi, Esther. Thanks for joining. You're also a member of the Net Zero Carbon team in National Highways, I understand. So thanks for being with us. Q&A time now, folks. We've got about 13 minutes, if my clock on my computer is correct, for any clarifications, any queries, comments to Esther, obviously to Jenny from the same team, and to the 3 main contractors who shared their information today, Kia, Octavius, and Balfour Beatty. So please drop your comments and questions into the chat, and we'll get through those as much as we can whilst I'm waiting for them to come in. Esther, is there anything that you'd like to add? I know you joined probably halfway through, so it might be an unfair question, but feel free to introduce yourself and your role within National Highways.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andrew. So, hi, can you hear me okay? Is my mic coming through?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Esther Gordon-Smith, National Highways. I am, and this is quite the title, Construction and Maintenance Decarbonisation and Climate Resilience and Adaptation for the Strategic Road Network Lead. Yes, I have practiced that. But in this conversation, particularly responsible for construction and maintenance decarbonisation. And yeah, any comments from me? We're just really pleased with the progress that we've seen in the supply chain, especially in the last couple of years. I've been in National Highways 8 years now. I was in major projects before. And I remember sort of bringing up carbon 5, 6, 7 years ago and being ever so slightly laughed out of the room. Whereas now, we can really see the commitment that people are putting into this. We're so pleased to be working with Supply Chain Sustainability School on this, and just really positive. So thank you very much for having me here today.
Great, thanks, Esther. There are a couple of questions that have come in. So, Paul, I think this one's for yourself because it came through at 2:24, and I think you were speaking then by process elimination. What third-party PAS 2080 accreditation provider did you use? And also, following on from that, is the accreditation process standardized across the different providers? So anything you can comment on that?
I think the process is standardized, yes, because they have to check all of the clause and subclause meetings through PAS 2080. How they approach it can vary between accreditation providers. Some literally step through the clauses and subclauses and inspect your evidence that way. Some will review what you do and from that extract which clauses are answered. So some approach it as, yes, what do you do in a day job, and filter it that way. It depends on their approach. Both apply. I think which provider we use is a contractual matter, so I'm not going to respond on that one. But as far as the process goes, essentially, whoever you employ, they would have the 3 steps. Gap analysis the first time you do it, then you don't have to do that stage afterwards. Stage 1 and stage 2, stage 1 being about the processes, and stage 2 being the project evidence to show that you're doing them. And as you get into later stages, the focus shifts more and more into the project evidence and less on the process. But because you're in continuous improvement, they do expect to see some process change year in and year out. Don't know what James has to say on that.
Similar. I mean, we approached it obviously the first time round with no prior experience, so we approached it with looking at it from a clause by clause, kind of looking through the list of, we got stuff to meet every clause, but actually the reality of the audit with who we were dealing with was more of a holistic kind of, we threw a bunch of information at them, and they, like Paul said, they kind of filtered out the bits that were relevant and important, and reviewed the evidence offline afterwards. So yeah.
Great, thanks for that, James. Thanks, Paul, as well. Gabriella, anything to add?
Sorry, we had the experience as just like starting in the process, like James said. We actually just go through the several clauses, and now it's going to be like the next step to review what like from a year gone, what's the lesson learned, and just go deeper and deeper in the process.
Thanks, Gabriele. There's a question about EPDs, environmental product declarations. How important are having EPDs in place when considering your appointment of product suppliers? So can we talk just very briefly about EPDs? James, if I could invite you to go first.
I mean, all I'd really say on that is, I mean, it's not a game changer yet, or a deal breaker, but it is becoming obviously more and more important, and we are asking that question of our suppliers: do you have them, or are you working on them? But it's not necessarily right now going to stop you from using your material. But it is, I think, over the next couple of years, I think we will start to see it shift towards where it becomes more of a necessity.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Gabriele.
Yeah, from my experience, let's say that they definitely help. They definitely make the life easier when you do the calculation and all the check. But exactly, it's not a red flag not having, because there is a way to get the answer even though you don't have EPDs. EPDs are always very helpful when you have to deliver like big piece of equipment, like elaborated material. So not just one single material like a concrete or steel, but maybe like a multi-material stuff. But it's not just like something that if you don't have it, you cannot work with.
Thanks, Gabriele. Paul.
Yeah, I think the thing I'd add there is, if you think about the order of priority of where your emission factors come from, then EPD would be first. But it's recognised also that not everybody has one, but also that EPDs very often apply to a family of products from a facility.
Right.
So if you're purchasing a specific product from that facility, it's not going to be the exact carbon factor for that particular product. To get to that, you need to be using certified LCA life cycle assessment. Thanks. And then your third category would then be published emission factors, which are less specific.
Right. But become order of specificity, if that's a word, become more specific, those different levels of certification. Okay, Jenny and Esther, is there anything that you'd like to add on EPDs and National Highways attitude to EPDs?
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you. So we absolutely recognise the value of them. And as others have said, in terms of, is that the eventual aim? Yes. I've had some great conversations with some of our suppliers. One of them told me it took them 6 months and quite a lot of money to get one of their products approved, and it's partly because there aren't enough approvers in the system yet. So we recognize that we've got this as a specific challenge as a client. Our current approach is we produce a carbon tool with something like 300 or 400 possible products you can choose from. We tell you what the coefficient is, and putting in a custom coefficient is a sort of bespoke thing that we do occasionally rather than the default. We know that eventually it would make more sense for us to move to a system where everybody provides their own carbon coefficient for the materials they're actually using and backs that up with a certificate. But we know that you can't suddenly do that overnight. We know that some of them are quite complicated, particularly on the sort of biogenic side, the bit around did somebody divert this from incineration and did somebody else divert that from landfill, or who claimed the benefit? Was it ever actually going to be incinerated? So we know it's an important issue. We would really invite feedback from the supply chain. We've got to work on this together. Like, we want to be ambitious, but we also don't want to make it impossible for you to do work with us. And so looking to do this collaboratively, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Esther. Yes, it does make perfect sense. Jenny, please add anything if you wish, or we can move on because they've got 2 or 3 other questions.
Yeah, no, nothing further from me.
Thanks, Jenny. There's a question about ISO, if I've got this right, ISO 14068 and companies' use of ISO 14068 rather than, and as an alternative to, PAS 2080. Any thoughts on that, Paul? I might come to you first. Is that a standard that you're familiar with, that you've had experience of?
I think as far as the purpose of this event, which is National Highways requirements on having PAS 2080, then I think that answers that question.
Yeah.
PAS 2080 is required. Behind PAS 2080 are a range of ISO scenarios that back up things like 14064 on organizational level quantification and reporting, and 15804 and so on. But for National Highways, it's PAS 2080.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'd back that up. Yes, we've made public commitments to PAS 2080. We're audited to PAS 2080. We have somewhat plumped for PAS 2080. We never want to create undue barriers to our supply chain if we're a public sector. So we need to make sure that we are promoting free competition. But we have made a public commitment to PAS 2080. So if we were in a procurement situation where that came up, that might be the sort of thing that would be a good question to ask. But we have been clear with our approach, if that makes sense.
Certainly, yes.
I think also if you look at things like the Construction Leadership Council, who are pushing the agenda on decarbonisation of infrastructure, then they have five key principles in the CLC, and one of them is using PAS 2080, and a lot of the major infrastructure clients in this country are signed up to CLC, so you can see the direction of requirement there.
Okay, great. I've just got one eye on the time, so this is probably the last question around audits and the implications and resources required for audits. What does a typical audit process look like is the question, essentially. Is it face-to-face? Is it done remotely? How many days does it take, etc.? So just a brief response to that, maybe, James, if I could come to you.
Well, I can only really share our experience, because I'm guessing it'll probably vary a little bit depending on the size of the organisation. So yeah. Our audits are about 7 days, but that's across all of Kier Group, and that includes time for Kier Group itself and then time for each of the 3 business divisions. Right. So our division itself is about a day and a half of time. I think as was mentioned earlier, when you're going through it the first time, you have the gap analysis or one first, and then you have the first sort of main audit, so that's a bit of a longer stretch of time. But even the interim audits, you're looking at a day or 2 per part of the business, depending on whether you're just one business or whether you're a group of businesses, will vary how much that time commitment is. but I found, again, like I think everybody alluded to, you know, having a good couple of months run up to those audits, even the interim audits, is kind of key, just to have time to get the right people in the right place with the right evidence gathered. Our audits have all been on Teams, so that's kind of handy in terms of not having people traveling from around the country and stuff. So yeah, that's our experience.
Okay, great. Look, we're at quarter 2 now, and sorry, quarter 3 even, and I'd like to finish on time, so I'm sure everyone participating would also have all got other things to move on to. I want to say thanks again to our panelists, to Paul, to Gabriele, and to James. Thanks, Esther, for joining us as well, and thank you especially to Jenny for hosting and providing that input at the top of the webinar from National Highways perspective. We really appreciate that. Lots of information to absorb. We provide all of the slides. We'll also send out a link to the recording of the webinar. And if you can spare a minute or two, just letting us know your thoughts on how this session went. We'll be acting on those in terms of continuous improvement. So give us your feedback and we'll take that back into our internal colleagues and make sure that we put them into action. There's a link on there for the feedback, actually a web form that you can fill in for that. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. Just reading one of the comments as an ideal way to finish from Stephen. Thanks for dropping that into the chat. Thank you all. We've held PAS 28 since 2023. This was really insightful. Glad the industry is moving towards a greener future. So that's not planned, I promise. Thank you very much for that comment, Stephen. That's good to finish. Look forward to working with you all again soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Bye.